Today, I'll be going through and giving you my predictions for the Jets rushers. Okay, let's hop into today's video. We'll be going through the Jets rushers. So not only running backs, we'll do Zach Wilson, which I included Zach Wilson's numbers in the passing, in just his predictions. I did those separate, but these are going to include everyone's rushing attempts because I want to kind of talk about where it would rank for the New York Jets because I want to talk about the Jets rushing attack as a whole. So last year, obviously, they didn't have an 1,000-yard rusher. They haven't had an 1,000-yard rusher since the 2015 season with Chris Ivory. And this year, I think they finally break that streak, spoiler alert. And I think they're one of the better rushing teams in the NFL. For example, this offensive line was built to be a run-blocking offensive line. Elijah Vera-Tucker moving to right guard and teaming up with Mekhi Becton on the right side is a deadly right side of the offensive line in the running game. Now, George Fant is probably the weaker of the run blocking guys on this offensive line, but he will make up for that in his pass protection. Lincoln Tomlinson, who you brought in, is a dog in the run game at left guard. So with those three guys, they have the potential to be a very, very good offensive line, and I can't wait to get this thing rolling. But just overall, here's how I think the Jets rushers are going to end up and where they would rank. So we'll start with Breece Hall. I have him at 218 attempts. 1,021 yards, so just over 1,000, 4.7 yards per attempt, a 60.1 yards per game, and 8 rushing touchdowns. That would be a monster year one. And with Breece Hall, he is someone who, he was a second rounder, but he should make an impact on this team right away. He is going to be very, very good. And I know that's kind of lofty expectations, especially, for Jets rookies in years gone by and just Jets offense in years gone by. They haven't had guys like this, but this guy's just built different, man. He has the potential to be a bell cow running back. Now, I don't necessarily think he is going to be. I still think Michael Carter is going to get his reps. Tevin Coleman, I think, as RB3 will get some rushes. And Zach Wilson and, some trick plays and stuff like that, too. Other guys will get the ball. But I'm so excited to watch Breece Hall work, man. He is going to be so good for this New York Jets team, and I can't wait to watch it. Michael Carter is going to be the RB2 on this team. He's going to be just under that. Obviously, they're going to lean on Breece Hall a little bit, but I have Michael Carter at 124 rushes for 523 yards, which is 4.2 yards per attempt, 30.8 yards per game, and 4 rushing touchdowns. Again, Michael Carter is going to get some use. Even in the pass game, too, he's going to get use, and more on that later when we talk about the receivers and the Jets receiving numbers. We'll do some stats there, but that's a 1-2 punch of these guys putting up over 1,500 rushing yards from year 1 and 2. That's really nice. Could he have the potential to go for even more than that? Yeah, I think he can. But for me, I think they're going to lean a little bit more on Hall, just personal preference. But this is a really good player, guys. This is a nice RB2. And if you have an RB2, can give you 4.2, 4.3 yards per attempt and 500 yards or so. That's really nice. I'd sign up for that in a second. Tevin Coleman, I think, is going to be RB3 on this team, and he'll get some touches. I have him at 49 attempts over the season, 205 yards, which is 4.2 yards per attempt, 12.1 yards per game, and 1 rushing touchdown. At this point, he's going to be in a little bit more of a reserve role, but still a solid veteran to have around. I thought he impressed me last year. I didn't think he'd have much left in the tank, but he was pretty solid for this Jets team, and he still holds some value, so I think it makes sense to keep him around. Zach Wilson, we talked about his numbers, but overall 58 rushing attempts from him, 287 yards, 4.9 yards per attempt, 16.9 yards per game, and 4 rushing touchdowns. I think they will utilize his legs a little bit more this year. I think when he's at his best, he's doing that. He's using his legs and, extending plays. He's never going to be Lamar Jackson. He's never going to be Josh Allen or someone like that. But can he run for a couple hundred yards and a few scores? Yeah, we saw Andrew Luck do it. Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. And I'm not talking about those guys in the passing, but just how they are running the ball. They're more than capable of rolling out, extending plays, and then using their legs to get in the end zone. And I think we can see Zach do that this year. Now, there's 2 other guys that I want to talk about, and I think both Elijah Moore and Braxton Berrios will have some reps where they are running the ball. I have Elijah at 9 carries for 41 yards and Braxton for 9 carries, 38 yards. So that's 4.6 yards per attempt and 4.2 yards per attempt for Braxton Berrios. But, we've seen guys like that looking at their rushing numbers and where they are, and I think that's more than fair. And I tallied up for you the total, what I listed off with those. Let's see, 3 running backs, Wilson, and 2 wide receivers. So that's 6 guys total rushing the ball. I totaled up the number of attempts, yards per attempt, yards per game, and touchdowns, and where that would rank in the NFL. And I have the Jets as one of the better running teams in the league. So 467 attempts is 12th in the NFL in rushing attempts. Yards at 2,115, which would be 9th. Yards per attempt, 4.5, which would be 8th. Yards per game, 124.4, which would be 10th in the league. And 17 rushing touchdowns total, which would be 13th in the league. So right around the top 10 in most of these categories, right? Like 13 is the farthest back, and that's in touchdowns. But yards per game, top 10, yards per attempt, top 10, yards, top 10, and attempts just outside the top 10 at 12th with 467. So they're going to put a focus on running the ball, and maybe those numbers have a chance to go even higher than where I projected them. But moral of the story here is this team has a legitimate chance to be good when they're running the football. Breece Hall and Michael Carter as a 1-2 punch. I love that idea. I think it's going to work wonders. Tevin Coleman as the veteran. Love that also. And like I said, man, Zach Wilson is probably at his best when he is running the football around. So I think it would be a wise choice and a wise decision, to let him do just that. So let me know what you think of the rushing numbers in the comments below. Thank you so much for tuning into today's video. Once again, I am Matt O'Leary, and I'll talk to you next time.
Wow.